We'll start with an invocation from Ulrich, Church of Nazarene.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for our city, and we thank you for all of these who serve and to make it a better place. And we thank you for them and ask your blessing tonight on the meeting, including the technology and all that's involved with that. And Lord, we ask for your healing. There are some who need your touch, and we lift them up and ask for your healing. And continue to guide and give wisdom and discernment, and we thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we'll start with a roll call.
Mayor Jeff Phillips.
Here.
Clerk Treasurer Shelby Heath. Here. Council members Russ Overton.
Here.
Evan Armold.
Here.
Noelle Weishaar. Here. Jeff Rayburn.
Here.
And Ernest Watson Jr. Absent. City Attorney Todd Sammons.
Here.
Cemetery Caretaker Joe Effinger. Absent. Fire Chief Kenny Hahn.
Here.
Police Chief Matt Anderson.
Here.
Utility Office Manager Heather Smart. Here. Electric, I did not write your name on here, Heath Malone. Park Superintendent Heather Hall. Here. Street Water Sewer Sanitation Superintendent Bryce Black.
Here.
Gas Superintendent Todd Wilson.
Here.
And Assistant Superintendent Josh.
Here. All right. Council, you reported the minutes of the last meeting. Would you like to act on those?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. There's been a motion and a second to accept the minutes as they were presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Moving forward into citizens' comments. Jerome, did you want to say something?
Yes, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jerome Weigerbeck. I'm the new business service representative and the business development coordinator for St. Joseph College. Previous to this, I was the Work One representative for the area of Newton, Jasper, Stark, and Pulaski County. I've got a background in workforce development and investigative research to try and move that into the area. At St. Joseph College, what we're trying to do is bring some light into our building and trades schools, also into our CDL program, into our medical certification program, and we just recently brought a electrical lineman course online, and we have the individuals residing on campus as well as learning the trade there. We're trying to expand our footprint into the area, and we want to keep growing and providing a business as well as expanding the student body into our population at the college and try and bring that back up to speed. It's a revitalization effort. It's going to take a couple of little steps to get there, but once the ball starts rolling down the hill, I think it's going to pick up a lot of speed and a lot of steam and start and continue to grow just like a regular snowball. I think it's going to be great. I look forward to working with you all in the future, and I just wanted to stop by and say hello. I have business cards also I'd like to give you at the end of the meeting if possible.
Certainly.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jerome. Thanks, Jerome. Are there any other citizens' comments? Hearing none, we'll get into the agenda, which first is the request from the Eagles to close Harrison Street, I assume for the fish fry.
Yes, sir.
All right.
I am president of the Eagles 2548, and we would like...
What's your name, sir? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Haven't done this before. So.
No, that's why the guy's supposed to help you.
Yeah. My name is Henry Malone.
Where do you live, Henry?
Technically it's Bailey's Corner. It's still Rensselaer address, though.
All right. Go ahead.
We are requesting from the alleyway, be the west edge of the alley, all the way to Front Street, being blocked off there. That way the alley running north and south stays free for any traffic need be, per se, and basically need help from the city with barricades for each end and a dumpster for cleanup afterwards.
On September 6th?
September 6th, it's, I don't even think it's 4 to 8 is the actual fish fry. But we like to close the road down around noon-ish everything prepped, set up with visqueen on the road, then tarps, and then a layer of sawdust over top of that to soak up any grease.
We'll probably close a little earlier than that, so if not, you get people parking in there and it causes a problem. So.
Usually everybody that's supposed to be helping me this year is either going to work in Texas for a week or going to be in Eldora. So I have a crew of myself and 3 other people right now.
You have to lean on some of those older members to come and help you.
That's the ones that are going to Eldora. Because they're tired of it. They've been doing it for decades and decades, and they are taking their time, and it is what it is. And I basically have been spearheading the fish fry myself personally for 7 years now. No, this will be the 7th year. And I always manage to get it done one way or another. It's just not a lot of sleep the day before and the day after.
Well, Council, there's a request to close Harrison Street from the alleyway to the end of Front Street on September 6th. We'll probably close it somewhere around 8 a.m., if that's all right.
Yes, that would be fine.
Until cleanup.
Yeah, it's usually the street department drops barricades on the property in front, and then we go ahead and set them all up. That way, it's Saturday. That way the city doesn't have to work because it's all there on Friday.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request from the neighbors to close Harrison Street.
You got a motion and a second to approve the request to close Harrison Street. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Council. Permission granted.
All right.
We'll see you then.
Thank you, Council.
You bet.
Yep. And don't forget to come and get your fish.
Okay. Next on our agenda is our comprehensive spending plan. Eric, come on up. We've spent a lot of time working with Baker Tilly on the capital spending plan, which we've kind of followed closely in the past, but I think we're going to do it even more so in the future. So I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Eric Walsh, partner with Baker Tilly. I'll warn you before I start. It's probably an hour. I'll try to go faster. That's why I have a PowerPoint, but with questions, I just want to warn you, it'll probably go a while. Should have brought refreshments. Can keep it shorter. I'm going to primarily focus on the city, and I'm going to focus probably what I'd say 20,000 foot level. The mayor and Shelby have seen this twice now. This will be the 3rd time. I've also left the books for each of the council members and some extras with the mayor. So just recognize I'm going very high level, so I'm not here for 3 hours with you tonight. But after you go through the books and read through them, hopefully this gives you a good kind of appetizer into them. I can come back, we can go more detail, we can do a working session, anything you want. But there's a ton of information in here, so I don't want to kind of short you all with it. I'm going to talk about the books for a second first, and then I'll go into the PowerPoint. The layout of this is, if you do anything, read the first 4 or 5 pages that's in the overview and insights. We tabbed all of them so you can see them. I'm going to hit a few of these in the PowerPoint, the high level, but this is going to give you an overall snapshot of the city. Okay. It's going to give you some recommendations at the back, or at the back of that section. But the most important page is right here, page 6. I know y'all can't see this. It'll be on the PowerPoint in a second. This shows all of your city major operating funds, your 2 major TIF funds, and all 5 of your utilities. And it gives you an overall snapshot, the last 3 historical years and the next 5 projected years out of cash flow. So when you look at this and you see a positive black number, that yep, go ahead.
You flip it over to page 6.
Oh, it won't be on hers.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll do the books first. Then I'm going to go to the
All right, go ahead.
PowerPoint. If you see a positive black number, like in 2024, in your general fund $186,340. That means you brought in $186,340 more dollars than you spent. This is not a fund balance. This is a cash flow annual snapshot. You see red negative numbers. That means either you had a negative cash flow or we're projecting a negative cash flow in future years. And the chart down below shows you your fund balances versus that gray line, that trend line. That's where you want to see you above that line. So even though overall, and I'll talk about why we anticipate you'll see some negative cash flows overall the next few years, you're still staying above the gray line, which is a 50% operating balance. So you're still in very good shape. That means you have enough money in the bank to operate an entire half a year without bringing another dollar in. It's kind of a gold standard of a minimum reserve balance. So still in good shape, but as we've talked with the mayor, some of the SB1 issues coming through, we really need to fix kind of out in 28, 29. We have some time before we get there, but tonight's going to hopefully start giving you guys some ideas of the decisions you're going to face. The rest of the book, before I get into the PowerPoint, starts with City and TIF financial plan. Every fund has its own 2 pages. You'll see those as we go through the PowerPoint. And then we get into, there's a tab for each one of the 5 utilities, and it has a summary, both cash flow, graph, capital planning, outstanding debt for each utility. A ton of information here. I just recommend, as you guys have some time the next few weeks, spend an hour or 2 with this. I think it's fairly intuitive once you get started, and hopefully tonight will shed some light on that as well. All right, now let's start on the PowerPoint. And I'll keep this informal. If you have questions. So I'm going to start first with some legislative updates. I think you guys have all at least read, heard, the mayor, Shelby have given you information probably from AIM and other sources of Senate Bill 1 and some of the impacts and changes anticipated from that. The first 2 slides, I'm not going to read through all of them, but this gives you kind of a timeline of anticipated or adopted Senate Bill 1 changes. So things like for 2026, your MLGQ, that's your max levy growth quotient, that's how much your max levy or your property taxes goes up from year to year, is capped at 4%. Same thing that's been for the last few years. That's not a change, but it's going to be capped at least for another year. 2026 is when they start phasing in, and I'll go into the details of this, the homestead deduction formulas and property assessment deductions for 2% property class. 2% property class, that's things like rentals, agricultural, etc. I'll show you that on a nice chart so you can kind of get a visual for what that probably means for the city. Then we get into things like 2028, that's the big change on lit. That's where it will, if nothing changes at the state legislature right now, you all will have the opportunity, I'll look at it as an opportunity, to adopt up to a 1.2% City of Rensselaer local income tax. The county will have its own income tax, capped at 1.2% as well, but you will have to take annual action as a council if you want to continue to have income taxes collected by the city. Next slide. And then 29-30 is the phases go in. It is a 6-year phase in, so the final impacts, again, if nothing changes, like the mayor's probably talked to many of the reps from this area, there's anticipated to be changes for sure to this bill. But if nothing were to change, 2031 is when the final full impact of this bill is fully phased in. Next slide. So let's start with the property tax side. I'm going to talk both property and income tax. I'm going to talk in generalities these first few slides, and I'm going to get into some Rensselaer specific slides. So overall, one of the biggest things to understand about Senate Bill 1 is far left column 2025. Today, an average residential taxpayer, so that's a 1% property class, when I talk about a residential homestead, gets a $48,000 standard deduction and then gets a supplemental homestead deduction on top of that as a percentage of the net assessed value. So right now it's 37.5%. What Senate Bill 1 is doing is over the next 6 years, it's phasing out that standard deduction, which is a fixed dollar amount, but it's increasing the homestead deduction, which is a percentage of net assessed value. Okay? So if you're doing the math in your head, higher value homes likely will benefit from this. Lower value homes, because you're losing the fixed standard deduction, wouldn't get as much benefit. And I'll show you that in a little bit. There's also these supplemental homestead deductions, lesser of $300 or 10% of your net property tax bill. So highly residential cities, even though it sounds like small numbers, racks up pretty fast. I'm going to Valparaiso on Wednesday to do this analysis for them. They are highly residential and suburban, definitely impacts them very significantly. 65 and older, a $150 credit starts next year for those taxpayers, and then a disabled homeowner gets a $125 credit per year as well. Next slide. So I think this is easier, these two snapshots. So I'm going to give you a hypothetical, and I'm going to preface this with, this is in a vacuum as if this homeowner's assessed value does not change over the next 6 years. Okay, so I'm not saying maybe they're going to grow 4 to 5, 7% like they have historically, or maybe the economy has a little bit of a pause, maybe assessed values freeze or go down. I'm just saying today's home versus 6 years from now, if that same home was worth the same amount and taxes were the same, how would they be impacted? Okay, so in a vacuum. Average home value, net assessed value in the state of Indiana is $240,714. So I'm using the Indiana state average. Right now, in the left-hand column, that $240,000 home gets a $48,000 standard deduction, fixed dollar amount. They also get that 37.5% supplemental homestead. So in that $240K minus the 48 multiplied by the 37.5, $72,000 deduction as well. So you subtract those two numbers, they pay taxes on a net assessed value of $120,000. Okay, so that's what their tax bill is calculated on. Fast forward that first slide I showed you where we phase out the 48K, but we increase the percentages. By the time you get to 2031, that $240,000 home is now paying on a net assessed value of $80,000. So they are getting a benefit, as the governor has said many times, of how do we keep property taxes from going up like they have been. That homeowner, in this case, would get a benefit, pretty material benefit. Go to the next slide. This is a $100,000 home doing the same math. So now they're still getting the percentage increase, but because it's a lower valued home, they're losing the fixed dollar amount deduction. You can see that homeowner is paying $32,000 or on $32,000 of net assessed value currently. It's almost exactly the same in 6 years. So you can start to see where there's probably going to be more or less property tax relief from Senate Bill 1. And you can start to, very, very high level, start to think, okay, do we have more $240,000 homes or do we have more $100,000? And remember, this is assessed value, not market value. Even though they're supposed to be somewhat close, they're not. If you have more of the higher level homes, keep in mind, as you're having less net assessed value, that's going to raise your tax rate, because your tax rate has to go up to generate the same amount of money on a lower net assessed value. If you have more lower level homes, 100,000, 150, whatever that would be, you may not see as big of impacts from this, okay, because it's a steadier net assessed value base. Again, this is in a vacuum and doesn't take into account, well, we may see 7% growth in our net assessed values each year for the next few years, because we've seen a lot of growth historically, whether that's been trending or it's been new home builds. Definitely could happen, would be good for the city. The taxpayer relief, though, we're talking about kind of goes out the window at that point, because then all that's happening is as their deductions go in, their such values going up, and it offsets each other. Okay. Next slide. I would say as important, that was the 1% class. That's your residential homestead, first home homeowners, or single-family homeowners. 2%, so this is agricultural, long-term care facilities, and rentals. So this would definitely impact Rensselaer. They have not had a standard deduction in the past. They just, your assessed value is $100,000, you pay your tax bill on $100,000. They will now have a phase-in of a standard deduction at year 6 of 33%. So think of it this way again, if your 2% property classes just stayed the same, the values for the next 6 years, you would have in your assessed value calculation about 67% of the value that you have today. Okay, so once again, what does that do? That brings down the overall net assessed value of the city, which does what? Raises the tax rate to generate the same amount of money. Okay, next slide. And then the third leg of the stool is business personal property tax. My interpretation of this, or I guess if I can give my opinion, this is kind of the first step. Indiana, for several legislative cycles now, has been trying to get rid of business personal property tax. I think this was a half step to what their real end game is to totally eliminate it. Right now, this phases in through 27, the de minimis exemption to $2 million. So what that means is if you're a local shop that has less than $2 million of personal business property tax, you don't even have to file a BPP tax filing anymore. The good part of this, and I do agree with, is it takes away a lot of red tape for smaller businesses. Right now, the de minimis exemption is $80,000, so it significantly increases that. I think AIM put out some talking points on this, like 90% or 85% of businesses in Indiana would fall under the $2 million now, which sounds big, but The other 10% are the huge taxpayers, the big boxes and all of that are paying the rest of it. But this will have a material impact on any communities that have business personal property or a significant amount. The other piece of this is it removes the 30% personal property tax floor on equipment put into place this year or later. Simplest way to think about that is if equipment went in prior to this year, even if it gets fully depreciated, you still had a 30% value of that property, so you're getting some tax dollars off of it. Any new property put into place, once it's fully depreciated, you're getting zero tax dollars off of it. Even if it's still in service, they use it another 20 years, $0 coming from tax. Already talks about the max levy growth quotient, capped at 4% for 26. Had it not been capped, the state would have been about 5.6%. This is a snapshot of all the changes to lit. So we were talking property taxes, now we're going to talk lit. Okay, a lot of detail on this. The one I want you to focus on is the second from the far right, a municipality with a population of at least 3,500, which is the city of Rensselaer. You will have in 2027 the option to enact a local income tax up to 1.2%. All the rest of these deal with either smaller communities or the county. The county can do the same. The county can adopt a fire protection EMS. They can adopt a non-municipal rate. Those aren't in your control. The 1.2% is in your control. Next slide. Here's a snapshot today, and this is in the book, and these assumptions are in this book that you guys would go to 1.2%. I'm not saying you're going to go to the 1.2%. I'm saying this analysis today assumes that you would go to the maximum, and I'll show you why that's probably going to be our recommendation. Let me caveat this with Department of Revenue does not track income data by municipality. That's why this doesn't go into effect until 2028, because the Indiana Department of Revenue needs to figure out how much income is being generated in each municipality to have accurate numbers. What we did is we took readily available census data, median income levels, population by municipal versus unincorporated, and we made assumptions and said, okay, we can take the average household income or the average income, multiply it by the population of Rensselaer, and get a very ballpark idea of where your incomes are going to come in. Not perfect science, but it's the best data that we have today for you guys to start planning on. Hopefully about a year from now, DOR will at least have information that we can give you accurate numbers. Today, so 2025 left-hand column, City of Rensselaer receives $1,034,000 in certified shares. That's general fund income tax that comes in to your general fund. About $523,000 in public safety, $360,000 in economic development, so it goes into your seeded or edit fund, and then you get $223,000 for your levy freeze. Okay, that's income tax dollars that come in that buys down the property tax rate. Simplest way to think of that. That also goes into your general fund. So right now, 2025, Shelby's office will get about $2.1 million in income taxes. If we extrapolate that out based on the last 3 years of growth that we've seen in incomes in Rensselaer, in Jasper County, we anticipate by 2027, you'd be somewhere around 2.5 million in income taxes if the same income level or growth rates continue for the next 3 years. Another assumption. Using that math I talked to you earlier about using census level data, in 2028, even if you go to the 1.2% max, we're anticipating you'll be around 2.1, 2.2 million. So we do think there could possibly be a few $100,000 reduction in your income taxes, even if you decide to go to the maximum rate. Following me so far? Any questions? Obviously, probably some concerns. Any questions, feedback initially from seeing that?
The only question I had, again, is every year we have to adopt that, right?
Correct.
The way it's written up.
Yes.
Okay.
And again, like I said, I'll be here an hour. I could be here 5 hours and talk to you guys about this stuff. But like one sidebar of that is, if you ever pledge, and this attorneys as well have the same concern, if you ever pledged income tax as a revenue support of a bond issue, as an example, who's going to buy a bond when they know the council has to adopt that 1.2% every year? And a future council could come back and say, well, we don't want to have an income tax. Well, now you just lost your $2 million pledge to the repayment of that bond. So this, I'm not a bond counsel, it's not my opinion, but this could definitely impact your ability to bond in the future. Again, don't take this as gospel, the 2.5 to 2.2, but it does show you, because we're doing this for communities all over the state right now based on the same assumption. I'm working with some communities where they're no problem. I mean, if they go to 1.2, they're generating a couple $1 million extra because their income tax level for the county is so low. I'm also dealing with some communities, like Marion's one that comes to mind, several $1 million less in this. So, again, not perfect math, but I'd say you guys are close enough. I think you're going to be probably needing to go to the max, and at best probably saying about level of what you get now from income taxes. Next slide. Effective date of lit, this just goes through when the ordinances need to be adopted, but 2027 is when you'll be making these decisions if nothing changes in the legislation. All right, road funding is another one I want to hit. So now we've talked property tax, income tax. Now I want to talk a little bit about roads. The piece to understand here is community crossings grant money still is going to be available. Regardless of if you have a wheel tax at the county or the local level, you are still eligible for CCMG grant matches, same as it has been. The one change to this is if you do not have a wheel tax for your municipality, so if Jasper County has one and you don't count. If you do not have one in your city, you're not eligible for the additional distribution of CCMG based on lane or road miles. That dollar amount has not been huge in the past, but if that changes or grows or you have enough budget constraints, that could be a major decision maker because you would not be eligible for that bucket of money without having a wheel tax for the city. Next slide. Budget process, very important, I think, for the public and Shelby's office to understand. In 2029, if nothing happens with this whole process, your budget will have an additional public hearing. Doesn't sound like a big deal. It somewhat is a big deal for the clerk treasurers because this moves your whole, especially if you only meet once a month, moves your whole budget process up an entire month. And I don't think there's a lot of clerk treasurers sitting around saying they have all kinds of extra time during budget season for this. This is one of the changes AIM is really pushing back on is just why are we adding more red tape to this process. Next slide. Fire territories, if you do establish a fire territory post this legislation, so this year or later, you're capped at a 40-cent tax rate. If you had a fire territory prior, you're again grandfathered in even if it was a higher tax rate. Miscellaneous provisions, biggest one here is excess levy appeals. If you were a fast-growing city, meaning your assessed value was growing about 2 times or a little more than 2 times the state average, you could appeal to get additional property taxes every year, because what that meant, what the thought behind that was, okay, we're growing at a faster clip than the state. We need to get more than the 4% increase because we got to pay more firefighters and police officers and all of this as we grow so fast. That is eliminated with this. A lot of communities a few years ago, as assessed values in COVID were going way up, were qualifying for this. Probably doesn't impact you tremendously. It really impacts like the donut communities of Indianapolis, some areas in Lake County like St. John, some very fast growing communities. This is a pretty large detriment for them. Next slide. Next slide. All right, this is where we get into, help, what can we do? How do we figure out SB1? What's the plan? What I would tell you, and kudos to you all and the mayor and Shelby, you guys are doing what we're recommending a lot of people do right now is have a plan. Okay, you guys already have your first plan, this monster book that you're going to all go to sleep probably reading. But the first thing is have a spending plan. Once you have a spending plan and it's detailed, it's Excel-based, it's moduled out through this, then as more information comes along, like we get DOR numbers, the impacts for the first year Senate Bill 1 start to be realized. You update this plan, the revenue side, start overlaying it to your expenditure plan, saying where do we have issues and what decisions do we have to make to solve them. Because it becomes really simple at that point. If you have funding shortfalls, it's where can we cut costs or where can we raise more revenue? And there's not a whole lot of options for either of those, so it starts to become pretty easy for you guys. As not easy decisions, but pretty easy in terms of what options do we even have. Next slide. Next slide, same thing I just went through. Next slide, how many years you should be planning. Keep going, we'll just get into the actual meat and potatoes of it. This is a hypothetical example from some of the property tax impacts from what LSA, that's the Legislative Service Agencies, it's a branch of the state, some of the impacts they were putting in. I'm actually going to show you the impacts for Rensselaer specifically, so we don't need to look at this example. This is another example. I'm going to show you Rensselaer really. Next one. Next one, it's generic. All right, now we're going to get into Rensselaer specific. All this information's in the book. I'm just going to show you a snapshot of a few pages in the book, okay? First one, overview of your property tax caps and circuit breaker. First question should always be, the first whole 10 minutes I went through was property tax. And remember, assessed values go down, tax rates go up. What's that mean? Pushes more people to the circuit breaker, means less realized revenue for the local government. So the very first question is, are we a circuit breaker or property tax impacted community? To start with, not really. You guys only lose about 0.2% of your property tax revenue to circuit breaker. So you're very, say, fortunate, low property tax rate community, etc. However, that does not guarantee with these changes you now don't start to become one of those impacted communities. That's why we have to do kind of the analysis of what does this mean by year 6 if we don't grow, if we do grow, if we downsize, etc. So right now you're starting in a good spot. You bring in about $2 million, or in 2025 you'll bring in about $2,050,000 in property tax revenues. You lose less than $10,000 of that to circuit breaker. Next slide. Assessed values. I know you guys can't see a lot of this, but the picture is what's important. Top graph is your assessed value to tax rate. So the gold bars are the assessed value the last 5 years. You can see you guys are growing at a pretty good clip. The gray line that goes through that is your tax rate. Okay, so Rensselaer, not unlike, I would say, the vast majority of Indiana communities, when you hear the talking point, we have a property tax issue, it is not a property tax rate issue. It is not like municipalities and counties and schools went out and are raising property tax rates 10, 15, 20%. What's happening is assessed values are going up at a pretty fast clip. Tax rates are staying level, even going down in most communities. But if I'm a homeowner that my property tax or my assessed value went up 30% in the last few years, even if my tax rate stayed the same, I'm still paying 30% more roughly on my tax bill. It's an assessment, trending, trying to get to market value, COVID issue, not a tax rate issue. I think that's been lost in a lot of the discussion points that we went through. You can see that right with your numbers. Last 5 years, your city tax rate has decreased 6% in the last 5 years. Your assessed value, your net assessed value has increased 25% in that period of time. Now, some of that's growth, some of that's new building, bringing more residents into town, etc. A lot of that, though, is trending of assessed values of current homes going up. Shows you, again, it's an assessment issue, not a tax rate issue. The second chart, or the bottom chart, this is your income taxes. A lot of colors on this, but I'll give you what they are. The bottom one, or the dark green, that's your certified lit. That is your general fund lit. That's the vast majority of what you guys get every year. You can see that's steadily been going up slightly the last few years. Red is your public safety lit, so that was adopted by the county. It goes into the public safety lit fund. It has to be used for fire or police. You can see that's been growing even a little bit faster the last few years. Gray is your economic development lit. Again, that's a portion of the county income tax that you guys collect. That's stayed about level the last several years. Gold, that's supplemental lit. So that's an additional distribution that you're not guaranteed each year. It's really your money. It was collected from your taxpayers over time, held by the state and their reserves, and they've been distributing some of that reserve the last few years. Not a huge number. And the light blue, the very top, that is your lit levy freeze. Those dollars are collected by income taxes, and they go to basically buy down your property tax rate. Okay? Not every county has those. But this shows your income taxes over the last 5 years. Your reliance on this has grown pretty substantially, about 55%. So income tax is huge for the city of Rensselaer, unlike many communities. This is a result of property tax caps put into legislation back in 2008, fully implemented in 2010. As property tax caps were felt by a lot of communities, not Rensselaer, but a lot of communities have 20, 30, 40% loss to tax caps. New legislation kept getting introduced, giving the ability for counties to levy more income tax to help offset that loss. Well, now, a lot of you are pretty reliant on income tax. And now in 2028, you're going to have to take action to keep that income tax, and maybe not even all of it. Next slide. This shows a graph, and I love showing this for communities. This is not saying like Rensselaer is good, bad, or otherwise. There's no real opinion on this. I'm just going to give you advice on what I would do with this data. The dark green bars are your budget for your core city funds. So I'm not taking like every city fund. I'm taking the main ones you operate and spend capital out of. The gray bar within that is what you actually spent. So what I'm trying to show you here is you budget the green, you spend the gray. So most people look at this and say, okay, we're spending about 80% of our budget. That's a good thing, right? So it's not a bad thing, but I would also say this is what I see in most communities, and I would say it's over budgeting. Okay? Talked about this before with you guys in front of the council. If there's one easy or low-hanging fruit from this, is tighten your budgets with your department heads. I'm not saying don't allow them to spend what they need. I'm saying get rid of the fluff or the, hey, I think I need 10,000 in this line item, but just to be safe, I'm going to put 15 so I don't have to come back for an additional appropriation. Why is that important? Not just so Shelby's office has to do more additional appropriation paperwork. It's important because you as the fiscal body only really see this budget one time for adoption, and if you have overinflated budgets in all these different line items, there's no real fiscal control of, well, if I needed something that I didn't anticipate, do I have to come back to the fiscal body? Because there's all kinds of room in the budget to do it. That's number one. I'm not trying to get you to micromanage your department heads. This is nothing specific to Rensselaer. I see this everywhere. The second piece is this plays right into the narrative that led to SB1, that local governments, cities, schools, counties have way too much money. Okay? Even though budget and fund balance is totally disconnected, if I'm a layperson and I see this and I say, well, Rensselaer only spends 80% of their budget, I could have the misconception that, well, Rensselaer doesn't need as much money because they're not spending all the money they're getting anyway. Again, that's a misconception, but that is a point I've heard over and over and over again. Local government has too much money. They don't spend the money they get anyway. Why are we giving them more money when all they're doing is putting it in the bank? Okay? Tighten budgets up. The third piece of that is it makes your fiscal planning so much more accurate. Because if you start at an over budgeted point in 2026 and then extrapolate that out, whether it's us doing it or you doing it, and saying, well, by the time we get to 2030, what's our budget look like? You're over budgeted by millions of dollars because your starting point started so far over budget. Okay? So tightening it up is a pretty easy first step. Next slide. The next couple slides are all the assumptions in these books. I've kind of started hitting these already, so I'm not going to read back through them. Next slide, disbursements, assess values, all that trending. Okay, I know you can't see the numbers on this. This is that book that page in the book that I showed you, page 6. This is just up on the screen now. What you'll see, and you don't need to see the numbers, you can see them in the book, but as you get into, well, let's start first, 2024, city funds, operating funds, you had a positive cash flow, actual cash flow of $825,000. You put $825,000 in the bank, great trend. 2025, we anticipate you're going to put $600,000 or so by the end of the year. Now, we've normalized 2025 with Shelby's office of we're not using the budget, we're using spending mid-year and saying, okay, what is your trend on real spending? You're still over budgeted, but it's real anticipated spending, not your budget. We think you'll end up about $600,000 to the good. 2026, okay, what happened? We just fell off a cliff. We're anticipating almost $1 million negative cash flow. That's primarily driven by some very large capital budget items that you'll find in these funds, and I'll show you where to find that in the book in a little bit. So it's primarily capital driven. 27, though, we're about break even. Okay? That is more of a normal year in 27. It's not heavily capital. It's about a normal capital year. But you're starting to see the impacts now of losses from SB1. And then when you get into 2028 and you start to see potentially that couple $100,000 lit loss that I talked about, even if you go to the max, now you start seeing about a $600,000 negative cash flow. And then in 2029, because it's a lower capital year, about a $200,000 negative cash flow. First thing I'm saying, this is what I had to tell the mayor the second time that I talked to him about it, because he first saw this. He's like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? How are we going to solve this problem? Remember, we're crystal balling 5 years from now with data that we don't even have from the DOR and brand new legislation in Senate Bill 1 that we have not even seen the first impacts from. Okay? We're conservative as financial advisors. I'm taking conservative assumptions in every single one of those. I'm not saying it couldn't be worse, but I highly doubt it will be. Seeing your numbers in 28, 29, and 27 being 600,000 or less of a problem, I'll say, or a funding shortfall is fixable. This is fixable through probably some minor tweaks to additional revenue sources. You guys may end up adopting things like wheel tax, food and beverage, things like that, pilot increases, some things you can pull the lever locally, or just some budget reductions or budget tightening over the next few years. You can solve this problem. I'm working with a lot of communities. This is millions of dollars of issue where then it's, Okay, we got to solve the problem today. We don't have the luxury to wait for a couple of years. So no alarm bells right now. Just data to analyze and start to digest. Another piece of that is the middle. That's your two TIF funds, so the Littner and the Drexel. You'll notice, especially in Littner, as that starts to build out as well, you have about $100,000 positive cash flow there each year. So we're not even using any of the Littner TIF in this. So some of these capital projects that we have up above that are in or benefiting the TIF, you could use some of your TIF dollars to solve a little bit of this problem. And then the utilities, and I'm not going to go super deep into the utilities tonight because that's almost a whole separate discussion, even though they're contained in this book. Your utilities, water, we're going to be back here pretty soon working with Bryce and Mayor on some of your capital planning there. You have the lead service pipe, $2.5 million, 0% loan, but you're still going to have to pay back the $2.5 million. So you're going to have some potential rate impact we'll talk about there. We're trying to finalize the capital plan. Sewer, if you remember, we raised rates a year ago or so. We know we have the last phase of your long-term control plan coming. The phase we just bonded for came in higher than anticipated. So we know we're going to have to come back and true all that up before you do your 2026 sewer project as well. So that'll be coming before you. Electric, gas, pretty good shape because of your trackers. Sanitation, I've talked about this before with you all, some funding issues there. We're trying to avoid any type of trash fee increases. In this presentation, what you'll see is we've moved about $150,000 to $200,000 a year of sanitation capital to your seeded fund. I'll show you how to kind of decipher all this to see the puzzle pieces. We're not saying you have to do this, it's just our recommendation. We think doing that over the next 5 years allows you at the current trash fee to tread water. You're not going to be putting any money in the bank, but we think you can at least operate, but your seeded fund is going to have to subsidize a little bit of your trash. Now, if you're connecting all these dots, I know I'm throwing a million numbers and all kinds of change. You may be thinking right away, well, didn't you just tell me that in that earlier slide, the seeded income tax is going away in 2028? Yes, it is. So this is a stopgap until that money is going to be going to your general fund in 2028. I should have probably went into a little more detail on that. Can you flip back to a much earlier slide? Keep going. I should have explained this when I was here. I apologize. Keep going, keep going, keep going. A little more. Right there. One more. One more to the other. Yeah, not back, forward. There you go, right there. I should have highlighted this more. You see in 2027 how you have the 4 different buckets of lit, and then in 2028 it goes to 1 bucket. That was a piece I forgot to mention. So you have lit going into your public safety lit fund and your seeded or your economic development fund right now. That all goes away. All that money then goes to the general fund starting in 2028. So as I said, if we're going to move some sanitation to seeded, 2028, 2029, you'll still have some seeded fund balance left that you have to spend down, but eventually that fund would just close, and then we'll have to move some cost, all the seeded costs to the general fund. Okay, so that's more just a bookkeeping. Same thing with public safety lit. You're going to have public safety lit money still sitting there. You have to still spend that for fire and police, but as that money goes away, then you have to move those costs to general. But the good part is it becomes less restrictive in the general fund. It's not restricted just for fire and fall. It depends if you're in the fire or police department or you're not. It becomes less restrictive in 2028. Sorry. All right. So those are the two that I highlighted as well, your economic development and your public safety. The reason I highlighted those is because those are large negatives in those years, but the top line, your general fund, is a large positive. That's just the math of you're still spending out of the 2 funds and no longer have revenue, and all that revenue is going to the general fund because you're going to spend those funds down and then close them. All right, next slide. This is that chart I talked about. This is all of your city funds that excludes TIF and utilities, so just your city main operating funds. Far left 3 columns are cash balance of those, so you ended 2024 with $5.5 million in the bank. That gray line is if you're above that, I'm happy. If you're above that, you're in good shape. You have a very nice buffer. You have a good, healthy cash reserve. The red line is a 15% operating balance. If you're down to there or approaching that, we have alarms going off because you're basically out of money at that point to operate. Even with conservative assumptions, SB1, some pretty heavy capital load, in future years, I'll talk about the capital plan in a few slides, we still anticipate you'll stay above that gray line by 2029. I still, and the mayor knows this from the conversation, really what we need to fix is 28, 29. You're not going to fix it in your 26 budget. I'm going to give you the tools to consider, and as we get more information from DOR and SB1, probably next year we're going to be talking about some of these levers that you're going to have to make some moves on. Next slide. Now I'm going to get into individual funds. General, I'm going to talk about in detail. I promise you all the other ones I'm going to fly through, so give me a few minutes on general, and I'm almost done. You'll see this in your books. So, for instance, if you flip to slide or page 8 and 9, this is the general fund. So I'm just showing you 8 and 9 on the screen, but you'll get a feel for how each one of these funds operates. So you look at the book or the screen, I'll talk through this. Left-hand column down the left, you see index numbers. For general fund, index 1 through 22 are revenues. Every one of those line items is some form of revenue going into the general fund. Lines 24 through 30 are expenditures, and we break them down by the same categories that Shelby breaks down your annual report: 100s, 200s, 300s, 400s. So this should look very familiar to you. It's just how you give information to the public on Gateway. Across the top are your years, so 22, 23, 24. Those are actual numbers. These are real financial results for the general fund of the city. 25 through 29 are where we're extrapolating out trends in revenue, Senate Bill 1 impacts, operating expenditure trends. We're usually roughly about 3 to 3.5% in your operating expenditures, and capital plans. Line 28, does everybody see that says capital outlays, page A1? If you go to page A1, I'm not going to ask you to do it now because I want you to have to flip back and forth a bunch, but there's an appendix in this that says in your tab, City and TIF, Capital and Debt. I'm going to show you on my book here for a second. If you went to this page, I know it's small, we can give you this in Excel too, so you can blow it up on legal size if you need to. This lists all the capital items city fund departments are saying they anticipate needing over the next 5 years. It lists the estimated expenditure amount, the year, and it shows you the fund that we plan to fund it from. So just because cemetery says we need something, we may not be saying spend it out of cemetery. We may say, hey, cemetery may not have enough money, you may need to use seed it to do it. So that's why you want to look at who requested it and who are recommending pays for it or what fund pays for it. If you go to that number and you go to 2026, actually I'm going to use 25 to make this simple and smaller. If you go to 2025, the general fund has an $85,000 budget on that line in the cash flow. I can go right through here and find the $85,000. It's $60,000 for a blight elimination, 2 properties per year. And the other line item is $25,000 for mowers are being updated, 2 new mowers for 2 older mowers. Not sure if that's going to happen in 25 for sure, but that's what we had earmarked. $85,000, so you guys know exactly what the $85,000 is planned for. You can see that for every year as you go forward. That's meant to be a living document. Department heads change, priorities change, things break down. Every year that should be updated. Okay, what do we need? What changed? What got carried over? How does that now fit into our cash flow? Everybody kind of seeing how this all puzzles and fits together? So then if you look at the blue highlighted line, line 32, this is that cash flow. So if you see positive numbers, which in the general fund every year but one, we anticipate positive numbers. That's a good thing. And then the bottom line is your ending cash. So you have about $2 million in the bank. We anticipate you'll end up at the end of 5 years with over $3 million. That's a good sign, but keep in mind, part of that is because all of the income tax money starts coming in here in 28 and 29. The easier way to digest this, and this is what I'll look for every fund, I do encourage you to get into the details, understand what's driving this, understand each of these line items. As you talk about this with constituents or you try to digest this large book all at once, next slide, I look at the graphs. Every fund is going to have this same graph that tells you the same story, just higher level. The gold part of the stacked line or stacked bar chart is personnel expenditures, so that's the 100s. The blue above that is supplies, that's the 200 level accounts in Shelby's bookkeeping. The purple is other services and charges, that's 300 level expenditures in your budget. And then the teal or the light blue is capital that you see at the top. So like 2026, you can see right away has a high capital load compared to the other years. You can see very easily, okay, personnel is trending up, other services and supplies staying relatively the same. And capital is a mover from year to year. Some we have very minimal, some we have a little bit more. And then you have those same trend lines. The teal line is your anticipated cash balance. The gray line is that 50% operating balance. So now we're doing the same analysis fund by fund. Are you staying above that gray line? In this case, your general fund's in great shape. You see the hockey stick at the end. Don't be misled by that. That is being driven by what? Income tax, all going into the general fund. You'll see the exact opposite when you look at your income tax funds. Next slide. Now I'm just going to talk about graphs, and I promise I'm wrapping up. Motor vehicle highway, you're going to see an MVH. You have two different funds. You have regular MVH and you have MVH restricted. MVH restricted must go for capital paving. You're going to see both of these have some funding issues when you get out to 28 or 29. Main driver of this is capital CCMG matches, because you want to get every dollar you can bang for your buck to do more paving, but also some personnel service cost increases as we go through this. This fund will need solved. The solution for this fund is going to be likely to move some of your levy, your property tax dollars, from general fund to MVH, because general fund member is in a very good spot. We can shift a little bit of that revenue the next few years over to MVH to help solve this. But I still want you to look at the capital plans and the spending plans and say, hey, do we agree with everything before we would move revenue? Next slide. Local road and street, this is another direct road funding fund, not funded by property taxes. It is funded by state tax distributions from the state level. This one's fine. You end up above the gray line at the end. This is primarily driven by capital. You can see the 3 years with a very large teal. That's paving or capital related projects. You do not pay for personnel out of this fund. Next slide. Here you see your two local income taxes. On the right is seated. On the left is seated. On the right is public safety income tax. You see the reverse hockey stick. You guys are getting the drift now. You know what's causing that, right? It's because you still have the spending out of these funds because you still have money in these funds, but you moved all the revenue, or the state moved all the revenue to the general fund. What you'll see is in edit on the left-hand side, you have about one more year of spending and then you'd be out of money there. So about 2030, you're going to have to move all your cost to the general fund at that point. About the same or a little sooner in public safety, but you'll be out probably halfway through 2030 in that fund. Then all of those salaries, wages, et cetera, need to go to the general fund. Next slide. Cumulative funds, these are primarily capital driven. The left hand is your cigarette tax fund. Not a huge deal. I'm seeing it fall down below because you don't have a lot of money in this fund, and you only spend it on capital every few years. The bigger one is CCD, Keem Capital Development. You do have some debt that you pay out of that, as that's the gray part of the bars. That's your debt service payments, fixed, known, and measurable every year. And the teal is your capital planning. You have a couple large capital items in 26 and 28 scheduled. This is one I think we'll want to tweak a little bit as we get out farther, because I don't want to see it go as far low as it does in 2029 or 2028. Excuse me. Next one. This is TIF. All I wanted to illustrate here is your Drexel TIF, pretty much taken care of. You have some debt, you have some capital paybacks as well. We're not assuming anything out of Littner, so you can see Littner is going to have some revenue available to help solve a few of these problems as well. Next slide. Developing and fine-tuning your long-term capital plan. I know you can't read any of this or see any of this. This is that capital page that I talked about. So this is that whole laundry list. Left-hand side, all the departments that gave us capital lists, how we're anticipated funding them. When you see the red, you'll see in the book, the red are TBDs. That's either we didn't have a dollar amount for it, they didn't know what year it was going to be. So this is a work in progress. I can't encourage enough council members to understand this piece of it, ask questions to your department heads, understand why they need something, why the timing is, why we're doing it the way we're doing it, because this is the one largest variable in this whole process. Capital moves the dial, right? Unless you're going to get rid of headcount, you're really not going to change personnel much. It's going to go up gradually. Supplies, other services, and charges are so small in the grand scheme of things. Even if you cut a lot of those, it's not going to be a huge change to your financial plan. Capital is the one that swings year to year to year to year. In your capital plan, taking out some large kind of maybe anticipated debt-funded projects in the future, you're spending on average probably about $750 to $1.2 million in capital every year. So that's just normal capital. That's like roads, building upkeep or replacement, replacing rolling stock, all parks, trails. $1 million a year, that's where you're going to have to make some decisions, I think, about what priorities are. Next slide. I didn't go into utilities. I didn't put utilities in here because in this slide because I didn't know if I'd have time. I'm just going to give you a 30-second overview on your utilities, though. They are in the back here, all 5: electric, gas, sanitation, water, and sewer. What you'll notice in them is, like, if you just go to the water tab with me for just a minute, I'll walk you through that one, and it's the same story for all of them. Your first slide in every single one of these is going to be your fund balances compared to reserves. Okay, so like in water, if you're on that slide, it's labeled W1. Left-hand column, you have $3.2 million in your water fund. You, at a minimum, we would like you to see $2.1 million in that middle column, so you have a buffer of about $1.1 million, pretty healthy. Okay, that's the first slide, just telling you where you are today cash-wise. The next 2 slides should look very familiar. It's the cash flow in detail at the top. It's the chart and the bar and the graph at the bottom. Same as all your civil funds, just for a utility now. What you'll see in water is you're staying above that gray line. You have a spike in 26 because you're spending down some of your bond proceeds in that year. Water, though, we are going to be coming back once we work with Bryce to finalize the capital plan. You're likely going to have some rate adjustment recommendation for this lead service pipe work that you're doing. Okay. Sewer, you'd see the same thing. Sewer, you have the last bond issue next year that's going to be done. We'll come back with a recommendation there. You're probably going to need a moderate rate increase to catch up. If you recall, when I was here about a year ago, we hoped that rate increase would take care of both. It did, and then your project came in pretty materially over budget that you guys did, so we got to make that difference up. But we're going to wait till we get closer to bids and have real numbers before we do all of that. Electric, gas, sanitation, you'll see good shape, but you don't have a bunch of money to rely on. You got to keep an eye on it. So kind of digest this information, and then hopefully you have questions. I know that was way more than you probably wanted to hear, but I just tried to squeeze probably 4 hours of information into an hour. So what questions do you have?
I guess to start with, it's the overall unknown that keeps me awake at night. I mean, we think we know what's going to happen with Senate Bill 1 or Senate Roll Act 1, whichever you want to call it, but there's still some questions out there. What will next year's legislation do, and trends for that legislation? It seems like every year our legislature wants to try to pull back any tip spending that a city or a town would try to do, and yet that's the one place where we have funds to help develop it. And yeah, so that what are you seeing as
TIFs on the debate table every year? They didn't make any major changes this last year, but the last several years it's been discussed. How can they tighten the grip there? I would say if you take a couple of things that I would take away from this whole discussion, your points, Mayor, are one, start talking now with your county reps about the income tax issue in 2018. Because, yes, you can enact it locally, but keep in mind they can enact one locally too. If I'm a citizen of Rensselaer, I'm paying both. Okay? So you want to have a combined plan and impact to know, okay, are they going to go to the max? Are you going to go to the max? What does that mean to a Rensselaer resident? What does that mean to the coffers of the city? What does that mean to the coffers of the county? So I think having that conversation today and working collaborative, you can start planning. 2, you guys are not heavily circuit breaker impacted, so I would say it's kind of a wait and see. Let's see this first 26, how it comes out. Do you have much impact at all with this first phase of impact? If we start to see the dial moving, then I think we may have a little bit more concern on what the next 5 years will look like for you all. I just met with the Speaker of the House probably 3 weeks ago, going through some of our assumptions, their assumptions, etc. The one thing I think we all agree on is a growing community is not going to have as much impact from SB1. Assessed value growth is the key. Easier said than done, right? But anything that you guys can consider or think of housing, development, etc., that's growing your assessed value and offsets some of these impacts. That is a huge key. And that is what I think you would hear from your state reps is make decisions that are going to help you grow. Don't be a community that's stymieing growth. That's your best way to work your way through this. And the third piece I would say is understanding your budget, working with Shelby's office with us. You have all the details here now of the capital plan, the spending trends, the forecasts. Talk to your department heads, really get a pretty good sense and understanding of how the whole budget process works and which funds you're going to face some issues. Because not that you're going to have to be budget experts every year, but it's just going to be so important now when budgets come. Communities are not going to have the luxury of the past of, hey, yeah, we've got money. Even if we over budget, it's not that huge of a deal. We're in pretty good shape. It's just going to tighten and tighten and tighten every year. The more you understand that whole budget process and use these financial plans, the better. I tell community or elected officials, and like I've told the mayor, I would carry this book around this is your game plan it's going to change, but this really is your game plan of how you're going to carry out the next 5 years. And as we get more information, we update that game plan. Anything else for me?
If there's no questions, thank you. I know this has been a long process, and I appreciate your patience and your staff for all the hard work they've done to get us to this point. Again, you've mentioned it a number of times, that capital improvement plan is what we talked about with superintendents earlier, that we stick to it, and if we're going to ask the council for anything, make sure it's part of our capital improvement plan. So thank you so much for getting us going in the right direction.
You are welcome. Do I need to stick around for you? I'll try to talk so much you want me to.
Well, no. You are actually, you timed it just right because we have a budget reduction. I know it's going to happen.
I'll stick around then.
Thank you.
All right. Next on our agenda is the second reading of the Ordinance 13-2025, the designated outdoor refreshment area, where we again want to express how we have a vibrant core in many entertainment venues, restaurants, public ways, squares and green spaces. The city's downtown core hosts a multitude of public events, festivals, including Little Cousin Jasper, Oktoberfest, Farmers Market, Art in the Alley, and others. The council wishes to continue its support of the downtown core's vitality and encourage its growth and prosperity while ensuring that DORA is administered in an orderly, safe, and inviting fashion in accordance with all state and local laws. The council again analyzes the location of the proposed DORA and determined it to be consistent with the economic development pattern for the area and the city's 2023 comprehensive plan. And now we ask for the council's approval, or how you want to discuss, if there's any discussion about your DORA.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 13-2025.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the designated outdoor refreshment area for Main Street, Rensselaer, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, council. Next on our agenda is ordinance 15-2025, surplus of 2017 bond proceeds for Waterworks project.
So this ordinance would allow the use of the surplus funds in the amount of $75,645.31 to be spent doing additional upgrades to the water utility that were not included in the original bond ordinance. The money would be used to finance the installation of auxiliary power at well 8 and or related upgrades to the water treatment plant approved by council. And then once that money is set, our construction fund would be zeroed out. We'd be able to start fresh.
Makes sense to me. I make a motion to approve ordinance 15-2025.
There's been a motion and a second to approve ordinance 15-2025, authorize use of surplus 2017 bond proceeds for Waterworks projects. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. You're free to go about your next project. Thank you, Heather. Next is ordinance 16-2025, security light rate amendment. I wanted to thank Heather and Heath and the crew for addressing this issue. I didn't realize where we were at until Heather tried to explain it to me one day. So Heath, take it away, please.
Thank you. This ordinance would change the security light rates. It's been quite the process figuring that out since we started switching to LEDs. The old rate had 4 different lights in the LED section. This would actually be 3. It doesn't affect the high pressure sodium lights at all. The price stayed the same. The LED lights, the standard light stays the same. The large light stays the same, but we have a medium light, which is a code 10. That's part of this process too, is instead of having lumens and all kinds of numbers for people to figure out, for customers, for billing, it just makes it easier for everybody to have a lumen code. So that's what we're asking, is just to go forward with this. It makes things a lot easier for everybody.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 16-2025.
Second.
Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving ordinance number 16-2025, security light amendment, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ooh, there is a fee attached to that when we need 2 readings.
It's not necessarily because there's a fee attached, I don't believe.
That's usually fines.
But I believe we require 2 readings regardless, unless there's unanimous consent to suspend the rules and pass it on the first reading.
Can we do that even though we were missing a council person?
My understanding of the statute is it's the unanimous consent of those present if you've got a quorum.
That's how I understand it too. Yeah.
What are we going to do, council?
Make a motion to suspend the rules.
Been a motion and a second to suspend the rules in reference to ordinance 16-2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Now, do we need to readdress this, I assume? We've suspended.
Yeah, if you want
I'll go.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll go ahead and make a motion again to approve ordinance 16-2025.
Second.
All right. There's a motion and a second to approve ordinance number 16-2025, the security light amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, council. Next is ordinance 17-2025, the resolution to reduce the 2025 budget.
So I have gotten preliminary numbers from superintendents, and for the second or third year, MDH, as you kind of saw up there, has seemed to struggle. So I got with Bryce. He looked at what could be, he might not use from this year's budget that he could use for next year. So that is what this ordinance essentially does, is reduces the budget of 2025 to then take that amount and put it in this 2026. And it is for MDH unrestricted in the amount of $82,950, MDH restricted in the amount of $60,500, and local road and street in the amount of $38,000.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 17-2025.
Is it every
Ordinance
ordinance?
On ordinances you do.
Yeah.
Not resolutions.
So this is an ordinance, not a
It is.
resolution.
They call it a resolution or a
That's, but we've styled it as an ordinance,
Yeah,
though, right?
we always ask that.
Yeah, so that, I thought it would be.
All right. So is there a second, to suspend the rules? All right. There's been a motion and a second to suspend the rules on ordinance 17-2025. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. No one's opposed?
Now I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 17-2025.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion on ordinance 17-2025? Hearing none, all those in favor to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, council. Next is a transfer of funds.
There was a request for a transfer of funds within the general fund for $2,825.
Motion to approve resolution 25-2025.
I'll second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve Resolution 25-2025, transfer of funds. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, council. Next is our healthcare renewal decision.
So I reviewed our renewal spreadsheet, and the plans that we currently have now, I would recommend going with for the new year, except for, I did look at vision. We are at a vision plan 1 currently, and I looked at possibly switching to vision plan 4. The benefit to that is you could have new frames. You could do frames once every year instead of once every 2 years. You could do lenses every year. What we have now was lenses every year, frames every 2. This plan would allow us to have frames every year as well, and also increases up to $180 towards your glasses or contacts instead of $150, so you get a $30 benefit additional. The cost difference in that is the employee only. The monthly premium is $2.65 a month difference, so it'd be $2.65 more. For employee and spouse, it would be an additional $4.50, and for employee and children, it's for about the same, a little over $4 difference, and then the family plan would be $9 more a month. So I did speak with Jessica about this as well in the clerk's treasurer's office. Talked about the differences there. It's my recommendation that for medical that we stay with Plan 7 and with dental Plan 1. I would like to see us go on vision to Plan 4, which is a new plan that was provided this year. This was not available before. And then the employee life plan, I'd like to keep that at Plan 1 as well. For discussion on that, though.
My only thought or concern is the increase in total premium between those two vision plans. $3,200 per, and that's my only. That added up pretty quick when you multiply by multiple. I don't know how many people are on. Is that on there?
Yeah,
You got 40 employees on the vision right now.
We have 40 employees. Mm-hmm. And we have 14 employee and spouses, 11 on employee and children, and 2 employee and family.
Yeah, so that's how I'm looking at it. Is not that I'm necessarily against it. I just want to look at all angles. But that's $128,000 increase in premium. And when you're just looking at the employee only plan.
Are you looking at vision?
Yes.
So the
When you
total
look at the
monthly
bottom,
premium.
total annual premium at the bottom is what I'm looking at. Or is that all? Or is the total all employees? Or is that?
I thought it was all employees because it was kind of real minor increases.
Yeah, it's $2 per. Well, the rate is monthly would go up $2.65 for an individual a month. So that would
I would
be
be concerned it was $3,200.
Yeah.
Well, right. I guess that's
That's
where
what you're
That's
saying.
for
the way it
all.
goes down. That's what was my thought. Was that was the total.
Yeah,
You
no,
wanna-
it's actually, that's the annual premium for everyone that's on the plan.
So that's what that $10,000 is. So it's $3,200 total for the
Total
whole.
for
Okay.
everyone
Okay.
that's on the
That's not
plan.
as big of a.
for all employees.
Okay.
Okay.
The total monthly premium goes up from $605 for all the employees that are on the plan to $867 total.
So is that your recommendation or is that a motion?
Well, I mean, it's up to everyone on council too. That's my recommendation. Then we can, if there's any further discussion on it.
I looked at the life policy too, in Plan 1. The difference between Plan 1 and Plan 2 is, it'd be another $3 a month, but it doubles the benefit. The life benefit from 25 to
I know we
50.
talked about that too. It's rarely come into play with our employees, but that would be something of interest too. The only issue is we got to make a decision tonight so we can get an answer back to the insurance company. But I would really support that. Possible. $25,000 10 years ago might have been something, but
Didn't get too much anymore.
no.
Okay. I mean, I would be fine with switching it to Plan 2. What do you guys think? For the life insurance? Does it say? Oh, that's for all employees, right? Employees.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we accept medical plan 7, dental plan 1, and vision plan 4, and employee life plan 2 for 2026.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All right. Thank you, council. There's been a motion to accept the healthcare renewal. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any further discussion? All right. Thank you, council, for unanimously approving that. Next is our ADA plan approval. Bryce?
Thank you, Mayor. Council, you were afforded the ADA plan. We did find out today that that plan did not have the sidewalks in it. I will get that out to you guys. It just shows what sidewalks are conforming and what is navigable but not conforming. And these are things that we can add into our goals and accomplishments as the years progress on. So what we're looking for this evening is the approval for the mayor to sign so we can get this returned back to NDOT for our trails grant. I will make a note, now that we have this plan completed, we can continue to work with HWC or whoever we decide to work with and just keep building off this plan, so we shouldn't have to go back to the ground and build this again.
I'll make a motion to allow the mayor to sign off on the ADA.
Second. Been a motion and a second to allow me to sign off on the ADA plan approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, council. Next, Bryce, is ADA Title 6 goals and accomplishments and signature.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, Title VI and goals and accomplishments, both things that we had been notified we were not in compliance with. This approval for the mayor to sign would allow us to get back into compliance, get these submitted for the Trails Grant. And the way it sounds, these documents are also going to become a requirement of CCMG in the future. And another note, the goals and accomplishments is not a binding thing. Those are just things for us to strive for 2026. So if we don't get some of those things, aside from the more critical things like the training and everything else that's listed on there, then we're not bound again. So again, we're just looking for the approval of the plans and allow the mayor to sign so we can get those returned.
Again, I'll make a motion to allow the mayor to sign the goals and accomplishments.
A second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve the ADA Title 6 goals and accomplishments and allow the mayor to sign those. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Thank you, council. Last is Title 6 approval and signature. We're last on this one, Bryce.
Yeah, same thing.
Same thing? Okay, I thought it was on there twice. All right. So we're good on all our ADA and Title 6 stuff from now on?
Yep.
All right, and we'll send that form into NDOT after I sign it tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
All right.
It looks like we can set the timeline for whatever we want, but I think they've got us penciled in for late winter, early spring in 2026 to renew these plans.
Yeah. And we'll have to talk about the grant funding for that trail project at some point, council. And I'll try to get you up to speed as fast as I can. Next is the design certification and waiver for the utilities. We had Commonwealth engineers come up with a form for the council. If you approve, you can allow me to sign it. Our person who did the inspection on the project itself is also here. So there's a page for him to sign it, and then the actual contractor themselves, which is St. Joseph College, would have to sign it. Are there any questions about the certificate of project completion?
So this is, you're asking for acceptance of the design certification and allowing you to sign it?
Yes, sir.
In addition to accepting the utilities into our, I don't know what you call it, inventory?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll make the motion to that effect then.
I'll second it.
Been a motion and a second to allow me to sign the certificate of project completion and accept the utilities for the new subdivision into the city's inventory. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, council. Next on the chart is ratify the pool. We had to have a quick response on our last easement that was presented. The people with the easement wanted to check at the time that they had signed it and got their signature notarized. So we called the council and appreciate your patience for us, but we'd like to ratify that pool now. I think we have to do that separately. So, you want to roll call, please?
Noelle Weishaar,
Yes.
Ernest Washington Jr. was a yes, we signed here. Russ Overton,
Yes.
Kevin Arnold,
Yes.
and Jeffrey.
Okay. I think we need to do anything more with that, do we? All right. Thank you, council, for acting so quickly on that. Next is our credit card statement. I went through it, but I'll hopefully answer most of the questions you may have about it.
I make the motion to pay the mayor to sign the paperwork.
Credit card. Been a motion and a second to allow me to sign the credit card statement as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, council. Next is a burial rights request.
We had requests for 3 total spaces in the 1913 edition of the West Cemetery.
Make a motion to approve the burial rights.
Second.
Been a motion and a second to approve the burial rights request as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, I know this is a long meeting, but I asked Bryce to put the I-65 connection requirements on there. In the past, when we annexed and we did the sewer, we were affording people who were homeowners to hook into without paying a sewer tap fee. I'm not so sure this is the same thing when we're talking about running sewer and water under I-65 to businesses who pretty much initiated this project. So, Bryce, I'll let you finish up.
So yes, when we did the unsewered areas project for West Washington, Owen, and Clark Street, that was primarily residential. They were afforded a 180-day grace period to tie in. And it all depends on the weather as well. As you guys will remember, it was petitioned by some of the residents to get that extension because we had a wet spring that year. So these are all things that we want to take into consideration, but also, as the mayor said, this is predominantly commercial. There is some residential there. So it depends on, and Todd, if we can issue separate letters for the residential versus commercial, if that's something that's allowable, Commonwealth to defer to local council on that. Where if we give a residential grace period, but there is no grace period for commercial, these are just options that
I don't know of any reason you could. I mean, there are 2 different classes of users. I haven't looked at it specifically, but I don't know how we could.
Just wanted to get council's vision for this. I mean, I know I talked with Noelle briefly today, but you're talking about people who are having, 2-inch water lines and compared to somebody who's having, a 3/4 inch?
Yes. So not only is the size playing into this, but this is also a rural rate. So residential is 2,300 tap fee. For water, that's up to 3/4 of an inch service. You get above an inch, it's all kind of material. Sewer, the residential is 2,300 for rural. Anything institutional, governmental, commercial, or industrial is all kind of material. So just to give you kind of a high-level overview, we've done quite a few 2-inch taps here in the last 18 months, and those have been anywhere from $7,000 to $9,000 just kind of material for us to do the taps. Sewer is bouncing around $3,000 to $4,000 for us to do the taps. The caveat to that, these stations are not cheap. So the resident and or business that's going to be putting these stations in, Councilman Rayburn may have an idea. I believe they're north of $10,000 for these stations.
It just seemed like a lot. We're not annexing this section either. So to me, it seemed like a lot to forgive, especially in a utility that we're struggling with. So we don't have to make a decision tonight, do we, Bryce?
So what are our options?
Just have a separate. If there's 3 residents out there currently, if you want to allow those residents, like you've done in the past, to have that 180 days to hook into the water and sewer without paying a tap fee, I think that would be understandable because we've done that in the past. But when we're coming into, 5 to 7 businesses, I just thought that was a lot of money to forgive, and I kind of wanted some input.
It's a much larger cost.
Yeah.
And it's something they're requesting.
Yeah, I mean, they generated this, so we're here to help. So.
But the others that we did that on, we were within our city limits and boundaries. This would be rural, right, that we're looking at.
That is correct.
So to me, that's a little bit different as well.
And there was another, that was a little bit different to the aspect of that bond issue required us to provide the stations and maintain those stations for the life of the loan. Whereas these, we're taking to the property line, it's up to the property or the business owner to put the station in, just like our ordinance is. It's their responsibility from the property line to the dwelling or business.
So we would just waive that. Those tap fees, they're still responsible for.
Correct.
The lift station. I would like to see it, I guess, broke out and see us forgive those or waive those for the residents that are already existing. But charge the businesses, obviously charge people down the road.
If that's okay, Attorney Sanders will try to have Bryce work up something to get it to you and lay it that way. But that's kind of the way I was thinking. I just wanted your input also.
Because we're also requiring them to do it.
Yeah, well.
They'll be required to stay on septic. Right.
Would you like me to cover that now?
Yes, please. I'm stuck.
So both sides of 114, it's kind of a unique situation for both. Right now, it's shared septic on both sides of 114. So you've got 1 or 2 additional businesses there that are at the mercy of one. But if they get rid of those systems, then they have no working septic. So the hand is going to be forced at some point whenever they get to that. We get the services there. Got one that's got the control authority over those stations through IDEM. Once they pull the plug on them, everybody's going to have to
So, yes.
And then one other note there, and I'll keep it short as I can. I went back and looked at the bid. That is just for the water side. That is just the tap, the service line, and the curb stop. So if anybody, business-wise or residential, wants to tap in, it is on the water utility to provide the meter pit, the meter, and everything, all the other components that go along with that. So what I said the bid was for the taffy line and the curb stop, and I'm averaging that at 100 feet more from one side road to the other. It's $6,000 per service within the project. 1.5 to 2 inch request for water service would essentially put us at an additional $4,200 in time and material to get the meter bid installed and everything that goes along with it. So in total, we're talking $10,200 estimated.
I think they've given a direction to go to start to get some of it, and then we'll get that to council along. And are we going to provide a copy of the letter to each business and resident also?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, if we can do that, I think we can feel how the council is looking at it now. So I appreciate that. Anything else that we may have missed?
No, sir.
All right. Any further questions for Bryce on that topic? I don't have any unfinished business, council. I don't know if you did. Committee reports, I do not have any. The trail grant, we're supposed to have another meeting with NDOT coming up. Along with BF&S, we are partnering closely with Jasper County Commissioners on trying to get the trail from Brookside Park to the fairground. We'll update council on timeline and where we're at with that trail. I'm kind of disappointed with NDOT's timeline at this point. So we'll see what happens after our next meeting. And we'll try to bring it back to you as soon as we can. I don't have anything else. Is there anything more to add, Josh or Bryce? Good. That's all the comments I had. Shelby?
I was just going to share some news that we did get a November premium holiday on our health insurance, so no one has to pay city or employee health insurance premiums for November. So, great stuff.
Finally, some real good news. Anything else?
That's all.
Mr. Rayburn?
I have nothing to see. Thank you.
Mrs. Weiser?
I have nothing to say.
Mr. Arnold?
Nothing tonight.
I have nothing either. Well, I think we wore you guys down. We'll start with superintendent's reports. We'll start with Chief Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing tonight.
All right. Attorney Salmon.
Nothing to report, Mayor.
Thank you. Alina, thank you for helping tonight. Chief Holland.
Nothing.
Wow. This is going to Heath.
I have nothing to see.
Yeah, we're going to put you on the spot. Bryce.
I have nothing this evening, Mayor.
Josh.
Nothing.
Oh, come on, man. You had the most fun day today.
Dave, if you want to hear something good.
Is it all done?
Yeah, it's done.
Oh, you're kidding. Thank you.
I'm being serious.
Thank you for your persistence. That's what I can say. That was a lot of work, and I appreciate it.
I don't even know.
Turn up a new spot tomorrow.
No, please.
Yes.
Heather Hall.
I have a lot of things going on, but in the interest of time, I'll keep it short. 2 comments. With all the disc golf events that we've had that I've been talking about over the past few months, we've been able to raise enough money to install tee pads for 9 of our holes of the golf course. So I hope to enhance the course in that way to bring people from other communities to our course. And on a personal note, I'd like to say that this week is my 1-year anniversary with the city. I came in, leaving my last career as a master teacher, and there were many days the last year that I felt like a student. So I feel like I've kind of come full circle in a short time. So I'm proud of the things we've accomplished in the last year, and that's thanks in part to all of you seated up there and the colleagues situated around me. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That was good. Very good. Thank you. Todd Wilson.
I'll make it last. We had a 9-year, Angie celebrated her 9 years last Friday. And then Jason will be 7 years on Wednesday, and I'm just going to leave it short and sweet.
Don't forget about September 4th.
Oh, what did you say? I'm sorry?
September 4th.
Yeah, and make sure you come out for the open house on September 4th.
And you're actually roasting a hog, right?
Well, Paul is.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
we wanted to do that, but we couldn't find anybody to do it. So.
Okay. looking forward to some education on that night.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Thanks, anything to add?
Happy to report the contractors are at Phillips Park today, putting the caps on the fountain and the wall.
Yay, yeah.
We've had some problems with the algae, so we are going to buy a different type of filter and UV sterilizer to kind of help that problem going forward. So should be ready for Little Cousin Jasper.
All right. That was great news. And thank you for the help with the DORA stickers and signage. I appreciate that a ton.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody have anything else for council?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you, council. Oh, shit.
So you
That is on this page, too. Claims.
Yeah, we need those.